Well, you hear about all these death row inmates that end up dying before they're actually executed.
Right.
Like the Night Stalker died of like cancer,
Right.
or something.
Right.
And then you see all these other inmates where it's like he was sentenced to death in 1986 and he's
Right.
still alive in
Right.
2025 and they're like 80 something years old. Why does it take so long to actually execute somebody? Because Tukey got executed.
Right.
But like, for example, Lil Fee, who also has the death penalty, is still alive, last
Right.
I checked.
Right.
So like, why does that happen?
I believe it's all the court systems and their appeals that they have, and it takes so long, and the courts are so overwhelmed with cases, and when these lawyers bring up appeals, it just buys them time forever.
Well, inmates on death row, do they all want to live and maximize their time, or are some of them just like, I'm over it, I'm getting tired of this death penalty hanging over my head, just go ahead and do it?
I've ran into guys that they're just done. They're done with it. They don't want to. They just want to be sentenced to death and go to death and be gone.
Okay, but can they speed that along if they want to?
You'll still have
You still have to go through the whole. So you can't actually die even if you want to.
You'll have people that fight for you still.
Huh? Even if you don't want to fight.
Right.
Wow, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
How many people have been executed while you were at San Quentin?
There was 2, and then Tukey, but Tukey was executed after I left.
So 2 people got executed while you were there. Was it a big deal, or was it just a regular day?
The whole thing, it would start about a week ahead of time, and you would basically shut down the prison, get enough staff to feed all the inmates while they're in their holding cages. When they're in their cells.
Why is it shut down?
Just for safety reasons. They don't want the inmates causing any problems or starting a riot or anything that's gonna take away from the execution. And then it's a big ordeal. You would have staging locations for officers. You'd have staging locations for the media, and everybody would get escorted in. And even then, at that time, you would do that and set it up. And a couple of times, just before the execution, they would get a stay. And so
really?
They would get taken back to their cell and continue to live. And the whole setup was dismantled.
But they weren't actually pardoned by the governor. It was what? Like someone filed some sort of document at last minute and the judge signed off on it.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
Correct.
Okay, so in 1992, you're around 27 years old. You left San Quentin.
I left San Quentin.
And you joined Solano State Prison.
Correct.
But you didn't like it.
I hated Solano State Prison. It's hard to explain in a way, but San Quentin was a prison, and I'm careful because I don't want to disrespect my friends and stuff that worked at Solano, but Solano was a prison too, but it was just ran different. At San Quentin, the officers were right, the inmates were wrong. At Solano, all the inmates were right, and the officers were wrong.
Really?
If something was said or done by an inmate, our lieutenants at San Quentin would listen to them, but 99% of the time it was just bullshit. At Solano, you would get in trouble for the craziest, stupidest things. And the inmates were allowed more freedom at Solano. It was also a different level prison too. And at the time, I'm 27 or something? I'm still a kid, So at San Quentin, nobody would tell on each other. The officers wouldn't tell on each other. The inmates wouldn't tell on each other. The officers, you would actually, it happened to me twice, you would see officers fist fighting in the parking lot, settling their beef in the parking lot.
With each other?
With each other.
Okay.
There was a fist fight in the upper yard at San Quentin where the inmates were around the officers rooting them on.
Really?
While they're fist fighting.
Wow. Okay.
At Solano, the officers wouldn't come to you if they had a problem. They'd go to their sergeant or their lieutenant and tell on you. And it was that way with the inmates too. The inmates would tell. I've never had an inmate tell on another inmate till I started working at Solano State Prison. And I worked there in the kitchen, and the inmate had came to me and said, "Hey, I can't remember the guy's name, but so-and-so's not mopping the floor." Well, I was kind of shocked by that. I'm like, well, why are you telling me? Because at San Quentin, if you told on another inmate, they're going to stab you or they're going to hurt you. And he goes, well, because the floor needs mopped. I said, okay, well, you're the lead inmate. So if he's not mopping the floor, that means you got to mop the floor. You got to do something. Mm-hmm. But he needs to mop the floor. Well, what if nobody mops the floor? Then we all sit in the chow hall until somebody decides to mop the floor. A couple of days go by, and that inmate that wouldn't mop the floor shows up to work one day, and he's got a black eye on his little black eye, and starts mopping the floor. Not that that's right, and that's not what I was getting at with that inmate, but that's how it was at San Quentin. You did your job. You didn't tell on each other, and they were I would call them convicts. They were stand-up men that committed crimes that were going to serve their time and leave and go home. And didn't make excuses, didn't sue everybody for, saying it was everybody else's fault. They would do what they need to do. And Solano was just different times, changing. And I didn't like Solano.
Okay, so 2 years later, you actually left.
Yes.
Really being a prison guard altogether.
Yes.
And you want to become a cop.
Yes.
Now, you applied to CHP,
Yes.
California Highway Patrol, but you failed the background test.
Correct.
What was wrong with the background test?
I failed the background test because of my, I was in the hospital at one point, just before, while I'm going through the backgrounds, and they had done a bunch of blood tests on me. While in the hospital, I had admitted to steroids that I had taken. Mm-hmm. So they're on my record. They weren't illegal back then, but they were frowned upon. Some of them were illegal, some weren't. And so I didn't want to tell CHP about it because I didn't want them to look at that. And I had stopped taking them by now because it just wasn't right. And they had taken my blood test and saw that my blood tests were out of whack. So they wanted an explanation for my blood tests. So I went to my private doctor, showed him, and he said, well, you either got tuberculosis or you're on steroids. Because doesn't look like to me that you have tuberculosis. So he wrote an explanation. I gave it to the background investigator and let him know that I was in the hospital. So he pulled my records. The reason I failed the background is for not telling them that I was in the hospital. I withheld information. And so I had to wait a year to reapply, which I did. I reapplied a year later. But when I reapplied, it knocked so many points off that I passed everything, and I was in the queue waiting to get hired, but there were so many people above me to get hired.
Okay, so instead, you end up joining Richmond Police Department.
Correct.
In Richmond, California, the Bay.
Correct.
Once again. Now, at the time, Richmond was the #1 most dangerous city in America.
Correct.
With 64 murders in 1 year in a population of only 100,000.
Yeah, correct.
So it was a mess.
Right.
And okay, so now you're a cop, you're not a correctional officer anymore.
Correct.
And you're in the city where the crime rate is bananas.
Right.
So originally you're a street cop.
Correct.
But you
For about
eventually
a
join Undercover narcotics.
Correct.
So what was that process like? Because this whole time you're the cop, right? You're the cop in the prison, you're a
Right.
cop on the street, but now you're undercover.
Correct.
And you're buying drugs from people.
Correct.
And you become friends with these people only to bust them later on.
Correct.
How does that feel?
Terrible.
Okay.
It's sometimes I have a harder time with it than others. I didn't have to do it a lot because a lot of times we used informants, and informants would do things. And it wasn't something I had set out to do. I was a patrol officer for about a year, and then got assigned to ride, and we rode dirt bikes, and they called us the biker boys. There was 8 of us and a sergeant. And I say dirt bikes, they were enduros. They were street legal, but they were dirt bikes. And that was our job was to go after the street level dealers on the corners and catch them selling dope on the corners. And I did that for about 5 or 6 years, and then that led to me going to narcotics, undercover narcotics. And I had done that. I did that for about 6 years, and that's kind of what it entails. You would hear about somebody that's supposed to be a drug dealer, and if you couldn't get an informant, you'd try and get an informant into them so you could do a search warrant on their house and recover their drugs and money and arrest them that way. Sometimes the informants or somebody would introduce you as a cop. They wouldn't tell them, obviously wouldn't say that you're a cop, but you're undercover, had long hair and a beard, and I either rode a Harley or a pickup truck with a wheelbarrow in the back. And we would do just little buys here and there from different people and arrest them later.